I myself, the producer of this podcast, is not eligible to diagnose anyone with a mental health disorder. This podcast is purely for artists discussing the mental health hurdles they struggle with on a daily basis. Enjoy. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Where's My Mind, a podcast about mental health and the arts. And today we have another guest that I connected with through Facebook after posting these topics on acting websites. And she reached out to me and she said, hey, these few topics would be awesome, but I would love to kind of, integrate what I do for a living as well and how it could help out. So without further ado, here is Allesondra Helwig. I've seen you in T-Mobile commercials. I looked you up on YouTube and I think you had a web series you produced. That was really, it looked really beautiful. I watched the first few episodes. I really liked your chemistry with the lead actor, the acting style. I really enjoyed it. So thank you for coming on today and talking.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I'm glad to be here and chat about this. I think this is something that we need more of.
I appreciate that. Yeah, no, everyone has said that and it's not even like, oh, I'll toot my own horn. It's just kind of crazy that like this is something that really hasn't been, I guess, discussed heavily I think maybe in circles, maybe your acting circles, your friend circles that you guys have maybe talked about it, but as a whole, it is kind of seems to be swept under the rug. So if you could please, just kind of tell the audience like who you are, how you got into acting, and where you are now. You said you were a coach, so I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, of course. So I'm Allesondra Helwig. I'm a working actress currently living in Los Angeles. I'm originally from New York, New Jersey, true East Coaster at heart. I'm one of the lucky few who has known what they've wanted to do their whole life. I actually started acting when I was 2 years old. My mom worked in the city and she started taking me on auditions very, very young. And I just kind of grew up knowing that acting was what I wanted to do, was what I was passionate about, what I had fun doing. So I did it through my whole youth and then ultimately went to college for it. And since then, I've worked professionally and lived in four out of I think there's 6 or 7 major markets in the US. So I've lived and worked in New York, New Jersey, Los Angeles now, Atlanta, Southeast Florida, and Portland, Oregon. And through that, I've done theater, both regional theater, off Broadway, musical and straight plays. I've done television, commercials, films, everything, and voiceover as well. And I have been doing that professionally pretty much since I graduated college. So we're reaching about 10 years of me pursuing my own acting career. And in the past 2 or 3 years, I decided that it was time to kind of give back to other actors because I remember when I was starting out, even though I started young, I still had a pretty traditional childhood. I still went to regular school. I didn't drop out of school to be on a TV show or anything. It was important to my mom that I had a regular childhood. So when I started working professionally as a young adult, there was so much I had no idea about, and I had to learn it on my own. And so a couple of years ago, I decided I'm going to start coaching actors and demystifying the business and being honest about the must haves but the it's nice to haves and what things actually mean and what you should really put your energy and focus on and how to have a sustainable career, not just have one big break. I'm not the kind of person that believes in overnight sensations. They're really not real. And that's really just like the 1% of actors that has that one role that changes their lives, but the majority of us are like me, plugging along for 10 plus years and just loving what they do. And here I am now.
Yeah, no, that's kind of quite a journey. I remember the other night I messaged you. Like I said, I don't know you, but I was like, "Holy shit! I saw her on a T-Mobile commercial," and I thought that was pretty cool. I don't see that a lot of people I know. And you're saying like you seem to be doing everything. Theater, movies, television. I mentioned in the beginning right here that I saw a web series. I'm assuming you produced, and you might be the only one of the few actors that have said that they don't necessarily believe in overnight success. I there's times where I thought, oh yeah, it'll be one thing, one opportunity, one this, one that, and then you hear like Kevin Hart say, "My overnight success took 11 years," and that's kind of like, yeah, like it's everyone's journey is a lot different. Morgan Freeman, his career blossomed later in his life. You could say 45, but it's not that it just at 44 he's like, let me try this acting thing, and it just happened. So yeah, I like your perspective on it because it's based in reality, and I think we need a little bit more of that than of some people be like, yeah, you know what, fuck it, I'm just gonna switch things and make it happen, and sometimes it doesn't happen that way. So today I wanted to talk to you about our first episode, like the pressures of making it. um we all put pressure on ourselves. I would love to dive into the I guess the mental aspect of putting so much pressure or having pressure from other people. And then I would love to kind of talk about maybe as your profession, like you're teaching, um, how that kind of plays into it, if that's cool with you. So do you put pressure on yourself? I know you said you've been acting since you were 2, or you've wanted to know what you've been doing since you were 2 or 3. Did your parents ever put pressure on you, or did you ever put pressure on yourself? Did you feel pressure from siblings, friends, or has it been kind of like whatever happens, happens?
I would say it's probably a combination of both. I think in general, in life, regardless of the profession you are pursuing, there is a level of pressure from all sides that you'll feel. But the pressure, I think, in the entertainment industry, whether you're an actor, visual artist, or musician, even, is different because of the stigmas that come with it and the assumptions that come with it. So I've definitely dealt with pressure that I've put on myself, but I think it's also been because of some of those stories, those overnight sensation stories, and the people who just make it. So when you grow up knowing what you want to do, or you grow up knowing you want to act, you immediately are like, well, I want to be that special. I'm that talented. I'm that pretty. I'm that, whatever it is for you. Someone's going to see me and put me in their movie, and then I'm going to be like that person. And so when I was younger, I really thought that by the time I was in my late 20s, I would be like, like everyone's teenager person that they loved, like on a Disney show. And then I'd be doing something else now because I thought that I had to be that in order to be successful. And a lot of that pressure was for myself. I'm really, really lucky that I have family and siblings and friends that really support me. My parents were never the kind of parents that were like, that's unrealistic or don't do that. Now, of course, they're not they're not without flaw. They of course say things like, well, what happens if this doesn't happen? Or like, do you have a plan for this? But ultimately, my parents have been incredibly supportive. So I've never felt pressure from them to have a timeline, but I have felt pressure from more of the extended family. I think like grandparents, cousins, uncles, people who, don't see you every day and don't know your work ethic, don't know what you offer sometimes. Um, they fall into that kind of pressure mindset to be like, okay, well, what if you don't make it by the time you're 30? Then what are you going to do? Or they
Mhm.
don't understand that a T-Mobile commercial, like the one that's airing right now, even though I'm the last, what is it, like 5 or 6 seconds, is a huge accomplishment. Like they don't recognize that that T-Mobile spot, that even though I'm only on screen for 5 seconds, is really hard to get. And most actors see that and they're like, oh my God, how did you get that? And then to everybody else, they're like, okay, whatever, it's 2 seconds.
Yeah, but like you're closing out the commercial, and yeah, and you have the longest. Well, maybe not, but to me it was like, oh wow, she's like, this commercials are pretty quick. You spun around at least twice, like that doesn't take a long time, that takes up some time, and yeah, it is a lot, that is it's a big accomplishment. I think commercials, people don't really put merit into commercials, but a lot of actors started out doing commercial work, and then yeah, and it's residuals, and I've my acting teachers have told me, like, you book a commercial. He said, he's like, I knew someone who worked like 5 days one year for like 10, 15, 20 commercials or something, and she made like 80,000 a year. I was like, what? Like, I was kind of baffled by that. He's like, that's the job I want to don't work a lot and make that much money. I was like, that's interesting.
Think ultimately it's like it's not how many days you're on set, it's the fact that you are making a living doing
Mhm.
what you love, which is acting. And so whether that's 5 days on set a year or 50, if you're able to bring
Income, yeah. But even also, if unfortunately maybe you might not be able to, let's say, it's all about if it makes you happy, because that's how I am. I'm 34, and you know I'm like, I couldn't imagine doing a job I hated. I think artists are very, you know, and there's such a negative word connotation with this word. Actors are very sensitive. Actors are very vulnerable. Like, that's our that's our job. That's what makes us tick. So, um, I'm already a high emotion, high alert person, like with certain emotions. If I was like this, and I was, and nothing against this, but if I was a fucking accountant, like my mom, she tells me how boring it is. And I'm like, man, I could not imagine. Like, I really couldn't imagine.
yeah, soul
Um,
sucking jobs really are the worst.
yeah, yeah,
I'm a full believer in we all have to do what we need to do to make money to survive in society, to pay rent, all that stuff. But I am a firm believer in general that that source of income should be something that you at least enjoy or feeds into something that is a strength of yours. Um, so, I mean, I have that perfect example. My survival job right now that I'm planning to leave by the end of the year, now that I'm coaching full time, is in insurance. I do customer service for the for an insurance company, and I do like operations and help people with their claims, and I help clients with their billing because and as much as that job doesn't really fulfill me creatively, I'm a very type A organized person. So where
yeah,
I get off on that one is that like I get to have a folder for everything, and I get to organize everything.
yeah,
And that's what makes that job enjoyable to me because I enjoy the feeling of like being productive and like
yeah.
checking off a box.
Oh yeah, I have no one can see. I just showed Alessandra my list of stuff I need to cross off every day, so I feel accomplished, and that's kind of how I feel too with my job, with certain things. So at least you're finding the little things that bring you joy in a job where you're like, it is killing me right now. Like, I hate it. I think off air you said that you are in LA, and you were saying, kind of not by choice. I don't know if you want to talk about it or anything like that. Do you like acting out there or auditioning out there? What's the difference between out there and, I guess, the East Coast? And do you ever see yourself coming back east to, I guess, continue your career?
Yeah. So I think ultimately every actor wants to be bicoastal. Every actor wants to be able to say, I work in New York and LA. And ultimately, that is a huge goal of mine because I miss New York constantly. In terms of my journey to LA, yeah, was LA where I wanted to live? Not necessarily. Did I know that eventually I would have to? Yes. And when I did make the move, and I had decided this for myself, that I wouldn't move here without certain things in place or without like almost like a hand reaching out. And so for me, that was either having representation or having some sort of job, no matter how big or small, that cast me that was here. And so when I moved here, it was very much an agent that I was with at the time who was like, I had like 3 callbacks for the Power Rangers movie. It was shooting in New Zealand. I
Oh
was
wow.
auditioning for the Yellow Ranger, and they cast somebody who looked exactly like me, but was actually 16. But after that, because it was like this whole fiasco where I had to buy a last minute flight from Oregon to be here the next day for an in person callback. This was pre COVID, of course.
Yeah.
And after that, my agent was like, you will work, but we really want you to be here. Can you please be here? And I knew that LA wasn't my vibe, but I also knew, like I said, I knew I would have to be here eventually. So moving here, I will say that career wise work wise, creatively, I love it. I feel like I'm doing really, really well here. But part of the reason I think I do well here is because I am such a true New Yorker at heart, that I'm very much true to myself um, in everything that I do. And this kind of brings back to like pressure for actors, which is like we all have pressure when we go into an audition or an agent meeting or a manager meeting or just meet somebody new to be what they want or to show them what they want. And it's like this people pleaser mentality that kind of has us putting on some sort of front. They get little blinks of who we are, but we're trying to be the perfect version of what we are. And that's something that I don't like about LA. I don't like the culture of feeling the need to be perfect. And it's different for everybody. For me, a lot of it is, of course, as a woman, is pressure to look a certain way, um, and that pressure alone is really, really hard mentally. And the first 2 years here, I was like struggling with that because I'm Latina, so I'm a little curvier, but I'm fit. But I was like, maybe if I lose 5 pounds, or should I go a little curvier? Like trying to decide physically. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to do that to myself. I'm just going to look the way that I feel good. And the industry's just going to accept me the way I am. But LA, that's like one of the biggest struggles for me is that. Plus, I'm a city girl, and I don't think LA is a city in terms of the way New York is a city. You can't,
Yeah.
like in LA, you have to know where you're going to have a good time. Wait, did I say that right? In LA, you have to
Yeah.
know where you're going to have a good time. In New York, you could just get off any stop and
Yeah.
like walk and find a cool spot.
I saw a funny meme the other day that was like living in New York is a trip. You can leave at like 12 o'clock to go pick up your laundry or go drop off your laundry, and then you've already like been to three different places to eat, had like met like four or five different people, like went to a few restaurants, built a whole new personality, and you're back by 2 a.m. And it's very much true. My both my parents lived in New York for a brief time and worked. My mom worked at this newspaper in the 80s that was like the Village Voice, and it was like a magazine for gay men, gay women as well, and she did the accounting for that. I was like, that's like pretty fucking cool time, and it was at the height of when I guess like the AIDS were the AIDS outbreak, so to speak, and the voices of people speaking in these newspapers and the people that she met. I was like, and she's like, yeah, I worked right across the street from where they filmed Ghostbusters. And I was like, that's like fucking cool. Like that sounds like a typical New York job, New York City job.
New York, there's always something exciting right there. In
Yeah.
LA, there's lots of cool stuff here, but you have to drive to get there and you have to know where you're going. And it's just not as easy to
Mhm.
jump out and just kind of make connections. I feel like a lot of people here are like, who are you? Why are you kind of listening to my conversation next to me at the bar that we're having a glass of wine at? Like in New York,
Yeah.
the person next to me were like, hey, what's up? Let's
Exactly.
share our deep, vulnerable stories, even though I'll never see you again. In LA, everyone's a little bit more private, I feel like. And I think it's this kind of sense that it's like, you don't know the cool people I know. So,
Yeah, I know, and that's funny that you say that because I lived in Florida for 5 years, and I was very. People said I was standoffish, but I was like, nah, I don't look strangers in the eyes really, because I've done that in the city, and everyone's like, "What the fuck you looking at?" I'm like, okay, but people. Yeah, well, sir, but this was 10 years ago. Now I'll go. Now I go in the city, and my wife works in the city. Um, and she's like, I want to not work in the city so we can go out there like for date night and I can appreciate it more. And what, I'm a big sports fan, and one of my favorite athletes is Carmelo Anthony, and he's like, there's a little bit, you're not a true New Yorker if some days you wake up and you're like, I fucking hate this place. And it's a very but that's if you're in it and you're grinding and you're all that. Like, I think it takes a specific personality trait to be from here. I'm talking New Jersey, New York area. I'm not, I visited a good friend of mine in Northern California well, depending on when this comes out, in March of 2022. And it's a different, it was 2 hours north of San Francisco. And it's just a different vibe. It is a different mentality. Like, I feel like I could tell, like, God, I'm such a fucking New Yorker. Like, just cut them off and go already. Like that's how I felt.
Well, I
Yeah.
guess the biggest difference, because I think New York and LA are 2 big cities where people go to pursue their dreams, whatever that is. And I found from my experience that I think New York is, the fast-paced work is valued over who you know, even though, of course, knowing somebody is always gonna be
It's
a
always
good
gonna help
thing.
you out. Or yeah.
But in general, I found that, like, the work ethic, the grind, the hustle, whatever you wanna call it, is the heartbeat of the city. Just kind of passion is the heartbeat of that
Mhm.
city. And I find in LA that all exists, but it's more who you know or getting in the room with the right person or having the right connection or being the right kind of person, whatever that is. It feels more materialistic and superficial, but at the heart, I know that this industry looks for authenticity. So it's interesting, but LA is like a much more slower pace, and I think it's harder because hard work isn't the only thing that will get you somewhere. In New York, I feel like hard
Mhm.
work will get you everywhere.
Did you feel pressure like having to live there, or having to live in LA, and did that add to the pressure of quote unquote making it, or was it just like, okay, this is just another chapter of my life?
I definitely felt pressure to live in LA, which is, I think, why I was resistant to it because ultimately, like, it's not what I wanted. I just knew I would have to. So, like, that pressure to be in a big city as an actor is so huge, whether it's New York or LA. But LA with film and TV, I wanted to focus on that. And the pressure to be here when it's so opposite my personality was something I had to adjust to. Learning how to express myself in different environments was really hard. And when I first moved here, I had a big life change within a month. And I had to decide, okay, am I going to stay in LA and stick this out and like see where this goes, or am I going to go back to New York? And I really, really, really wanted to go back to New York because I miss my people. And that's also where my family is. I have no family out here. Um, but I ultimately chose to stay in Los Angeles because of the opportunity. And I was still in my early 20s. And I was like, if I don't stay here now and figure it out, I'll probably never come back. And I don't want to live my life with what ifs.
Do you, and this is totally up to you. You can tell me no or yes. Do you want to discuss what was the big life altering, the big thing that happened in your life that where you're like, I don't know what I want to do, or
Yeah, we can talk about it. The short version is when I had that meeting with my agent that they were like, "Hey, you just had this big opportunity. We want you to have more like this." I was in a very serious relationship with someone that I actually bought a house with, and in my mind, there was no other person I would spend my life with. We talked about marriage and kids and full plans, and we seemed to be on the same page. And honestly, our relationship seemed really great. But then when I moved to Los Angeles, um, the plan was to appear that I lived here full time, while in reality, really splitting time.
Mhm.
And for him, that was really, really challenging. And it fell apart really, really quickly. And just for the sake of his own privacy, like, I think the short version is he couldn't handle the fact that like I had to be here for my career and we didn't know how long that was going to be and he didn't want to move here and so he felt ultimately it was the best decision not to. And so then I was like, okay, maybe I should just move back there. And then he was like, I don't want you to do that. And I was like, I mean, I think it's my choice. But ultimately, then the choice became, okay, do I move back there because I was really happy there in general? Do I stay in LA or do I go back to New York? Because he was like a big part of the stability I had on the West Coast in general. So even though we were living far, he was the closest person geographically to me that if I needed somebody, he was there in the same time
Mhm.
zone, even like if something as small as just someone in the same time
Yeah.
zone. So when that relationship ended, I felt incredibly like abandoned and lost and unsure of what to do next. Of course, there was also a financial aspect where I wasn't having to pay rent at our house, so all my stuff was there.
Yeah.
Um, so when I was thinking about it, I said, well, I came to LA for a reason. And good things are happening. Within the first 2 weeks of being here, I had an audition for a series regular on a Hulu show. Um, so like there, what I came here to do seemed possible,
Yeah.
and it felt good to feel that. But I also knew it was a big mountain to climb because nobody knows me in LA, and
You're doing this by yourself, and you need that support system. First of all, thank you for sharing that. I know it's not easy to discuss this. I've had exes before, not in the same vein, but basically say, "Oh, you want to do film? You're never going to make it." That's always tough. Yeah, no, no, it doesn't sound like that at all. It seemed like he was supportive. It's just that the scheduling. It seemed like a massive scheduling conflict in your guys' relationship, honestly. So I get like having you're taking a gamble on the unknown. This whole career is an unknown, so you're taking a gamble on it. You want to, you're betting on yourself, and you just pray to God that it something happened, because you're like, I've things have I've sacrificed so much. Not even a relationship. Like I don't want to speak for you. Like I've sacrificed going out, and I know it's nothing crazy, but it's like I've sacrificed people's birthdays, parties, time with people in order to do all of this. I'm sacrificing a lot of time recording this that I could be spending with friends and my wife, but my wife is totally like, I get it. I fucking understand it. Like her and I are expecting a baby girl in July, and I'm trying to do all of this right now to like, so I could be a good dad and be here. And it's like, all right, well, she's asleep now. I can edit, things like that. So it's the sacrifices.
you're essentially sacrificing your life for your art. I mean, and I hate saying hoity-toity things like that, but I mean,
It's
cut
not
it
though.
black
It's,
and white.
it's
That's just what it is.
yeah.
You're sacrificing your life and almost your stability for a career, an artistic endeavor that you have no control over.
That most people think it's a hobby. Like you mentioned, like you're outside, you're not your immediate family. People being like, oh, you do like, oh, like I don't know how many times some of my even my parents sometimes is that paid.
It's almost like this dismissive quality that it's like, unless you're like, you know, uh, a series regular on a show, it's nothing
Exactly.
to
Exactly. And
everybody else because they
you
don't
know,
understand.
yeah, and I think that's where like for me,
Yeah, and I think that's where like for me, I moved back to Jersey in 2014 from Florida, and I've done a handful of projects, but I've produced, directed, and acted in 4 films that I made here. And every film has won an award of some kind at a festival. And I'm over here downplaying the size of the festival, or downplaying, oh well, they just gave it to me because like I haven't yet like owned that shit kind of thing, because I think I'm I'm the first critic to go at it. So if like let's say my sister family, none of them have done that, but if someone close to me, or like let's say like you, or like a friend of mine, or just an acquaintance, were like said something negative, well, I beat you to the punch, so it doesn't matter. I think that's what I subconsciously do, instead of being like, no, I own this shit. Like I have awards next to me on my desk, so when I'm writing, I'm like, it's a nice reminder.
Well, not often, but the web series, for instance, there I didn't direct it. I just produced it, and I was the series lead. It was a collaboration
a
with
lot
my
do.
roommate, and he was the director and writer and creator, and I helped. But ultimately it was his vision, and so there were choices creatively that were made, there were choices on set that were made, and the way it was shot and lit and things like that, that I didn't agree with, but it wasn't my choice.
To
And
say, yeah,
so when people watched it, I was like, oh well, there's like this little thing here and there's like this little thing here, but none of them were going to notice that. I was more like, I know that this could have been better, or I know that this could have been different if we had known this before. Um, but I say also constantly, and I think it's hard to practice what we preach. We know that. So as much as I know, and I will tell every actor, like, everything that you book, every even audition you have, every positive impression you make is a huge win in this industry. And we have to own that and stand in our power in that and know what we offer and be proud and confident in that and not let people who literally don't understand make us feel differently. It's different, I think, if somebody who is Steven Spielberg offers a criticism, maybe you can take that one to heart.
Yeah, yeah.
But your cousin who does not know anything about this industry, their opinion really doesn't matter in terms of your value as an artist. They might have a good point, but that doesn't mean that they know what they're talking about.
No, it's so that's good. It's refreshing to hear, because you got to take. I used to feel that way. Like I used to really give a shit about like what everyone thought. Now I only care about what my peers think, and I don't want it to come off disrespectful towards you. I think you and I are peers, although you've done a lot more than I have acting wise and other things. I still think that we're peers because I'm I'm gonna watch something of yours, and I don't know if you do this too now. I just have an appreciation for a lot more movies than I did when I was first starting off, because I think I just know how hard it is to make it and how hard it is to make movies. So when I see like your web series or I see like an acting reel or like your performance, I'm not probably gonna necessarily be like, well, that was fucking dog shit. Like I'm not. I'm gonna try really hard to find the good in it because of I know how hard it is, right? So I if I were to show you some of my projects and you came back and you're like, I like this wasn't really my cup of tea, but I would take that more to heart than like my family members that have known me since I was a baby because, and it's no disrespect. It's like, I hope my family members who are CPAs or like I said, work in accounting, who are teachers, who are that, I hope that my opinion on their career, I hope they don't hold any merit to it because I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Does that make sense?
Definitely. I say that with my friend all the time. She works in sales and graphic design or whatever. And I have opinions and I tell her that's a big part of our friendship. But I always say, I'm like, listen, you know way more about your world of business than I do. So my opinion is just one thing to take into consideration and just like what speaks to you, cool. What doesn't, like, fuck me. I don't know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. Like
Exactly. That's a great
I
line.
kind of like have an idea because I'm not an idiot and I've had lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of jobs, but I don't
Yeah.
do sales. So like I don't know.
Yeah, I've had a lot of that's lots and lots and lots and lots of jobs. Yeah, I'm there with you. I'm so episode 1, 16 years old, this shit job. Like yeah, I don't know how many people are always shocked when I'm like, oh, you've worked this, like I've worked everything but like really film related jobs until my job now is not necessarily 100% film related, but I'm writing and I'm filming, so that's great. But yeah, I don't know how many. Well, no, okay, no. It's I work for JR Cigar. I work for a company that owns a cigar. I work for a company that does like videos for cigar companies. A big one of them is JR Cigars. So yeah, I write reviews, I film reviews, I write articles, film a podcast for the job. I do a bunch of that, and this is the first film related. Although it is for cigars, I'm still in doing creating, being creative. But before that, yeah, fucking retail, Wendy's, pizzeria. Would you like a soda with that kind of shit? It's demoralizing. So
I've had my fair share of restaurants, bartending. I substitute taught in New York.
kudos to you. Kids are different in in New
Kids
York.
are hard. Oh, they are. They are. What was interesting when I was substitute teaching, I was in New York and I was in my early 20s, like 20.
Yeah, yeah. That's and you think about it, like that's a babe. Like I said, I'm 34. 21 was 13 years ago. I was a fucking baby back then. So you're young and now you're teaching the youth and you're like, what the fuck am I doing? I can't hear anything. I know you keep looking. I can't hear anything, so you're good. Are you really quickly? Sorry, are you using a mic? Yeah, yeah. So it seems like it's mine. It's one directional, so I don't hear anything.
Yep.
So oh yes, I was substitute teaching like I was like such a child. I had to sub a physics class for high school juniors for a whole week. I
Oh
didn't
god.
even take physics in high school.
And these are
I
kids,
didn't.
what, 5 years younger than you?
Yeah. And so not only do I not know what I'm talking about, I had to meet with the head of the department and go over like a crash course of the lesson. But then I've got 15, 16, 17 year olds asking me questions. And ultimately I was like, I answered them. And then when they would ask me,
That's not in the curriculum. Yeah. Asking why is not in the curriculum.
Yeah.
yeah. And also the fun part of high school boys thinking that they can hit on their sub and that it's going to do anything.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
I
boys
mean, I
do
still looked like I was 16.
That's the thing. Everyone's like, "Oh man, maybe she's our age." Maybe she's our age. I have a chance. But yeah, that is a '90s movie if I ever heard of one. You got to write that right now. But no, yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your coaching and how you said you were going to transition to full time, right? What ages are you coaching?
So primarily I'm coaching 16 and up. Anyone that can audition and work professionally and sign off their own name, essentially. 16 and up, anyone who essentially has not been or is not a series regular yet. It's as simple as that. You can be a new actor, you could be someone just like me. Um, a lot of what I focus on is I'm not teaching a craft. I'm creating a space for actors to have community and also what I think is one of the most important things for actors in terms of growing their own skills and being able to work professionally is being in front of a camera every week. That was something that I had a really, really hard time finding when I moved to Los Angeles and I wanted to get in class. There weren't a lot of studios that actually put you on camera the way you would be in an audition situation or even on set, and that you actually got to take that tape home.
What's the benefit for that, you think? So I didn't mean to cut you off. I apologize. Just I think that's really interesting. What's the benefit for that as a teacher? Why do you want to put them on camera so soon? Is it so they get comfortable and it's a familiarity to it?
Absolutely. 100% because I made the transition from theater to film and TV and commercials. And my biggest hurdle was the camera lens, I feel. Um, just knowing that it could see every little thing and every thought I had was kind of scary for me. And if I had been working in front of a camera more frequently throughout my training, I think that would have really helped me. But also, I think being able to go back and see what you're doing later when you're not in it, because so much of when you're starting out, especially or when you're pretty green, uh, that out of body experience you have when you're working, like you like kind of only half remember what you did because you're like so in the moment. And also, I think it's important to start seeing yourself on camera. So many actors are so insecure about what they look like on camera, especially women, but men too. Like if their hair doesn't look like the way they want, or they make a weird face and they didn't want to make that face. It's like learning to accept your own mannerisms and the way you express yourself and the way you are vulnerable instead of trying to emulate what you think it should look like. So I think a lot of it's about being comfortable in front of the camera, and I think that really elevates an actor's work, especially if they're pursuing film and TV. And camera technique is such a big sign of a really green actor versus a fairly seasoned actor.
What two questions. What's more intimidating to you? And I should have been asking this to almost all the actors that have come on, and now I'm just realizing this. But to you, what's more intimidating? Acting in theater in front of a crowd of 100, 50, 500, or acting in front of a camera for the first time?
First time is the biggest thing. Acting in front of the camera, first time for sure. I think the biggest difference, besides the fact that theater is quote unquote big and film is and TV is quote unquote small, is when you're on stage, it's there's like this intimate vulnerability and this connection you've created with the audience they're never going to be able to see it again. It's really going to live in their minds. And when you're working on camera, that is going to be out there for the world to see, and they can watch it again and again and again and criticize you. You know, when you rewatch a movie, the first time you're like, I loved that movie. And then as a film person, you'll watch it again and you'll start to pick at it and see all these flaws. As an actor, I feel like that is the hardest part. Like with my web series, I even feel that way. Like if anybody watches it in 10 years, I'm like, oh my God, what are they going to think of my acting in 10 years on this project I just did in my mid 20s? So I think that is for me the bigger fear is like film lasts forever. Theater is that one night, that one special moment, that one
Yeah,
connection. You know, if you
yeah,
mess up, you get to try again the next day. But if you don't get it right on set in front of the camera,
I'm going to play little devil's advocate here. No, I'm just saying in 10 years, someone can look back and be like, that's how Alessandra started. Or look at her as in this web series. Now look at her. I think there is always a negative and a positive side, right? With everything, obviously, but you make a really good point of like film is forever. And I know I don't want to sound cheesy or stupid or whatever, but like that's what I'm really excited about. Like, eventually, I didn't expect to have kids so soon, but that's in 5, 6 years, I get to kind of show my daughter, like, hey, this is what I've done. Or when she's a little bit older, like I've always wanted to do, like, and I think it's something not even like from a kid's standpoint, like I can go back and reminisce, like, hopefully I am doing film related projects till the day I die. Right. But if for whatever reason, if I end up not doing it, life gets in the way, something like that. It's always something I can go look back on and cherish, kind of thing. And I think that's really awesome that you are teaching your students to act for the camera. Because I've never done theater. And my mom, I'm very close with. She's like, real actors, they do theater. Granted, she's never acted in her life, so I don't know where the fuck she got that comment, but she is right. Um, She's not wrong. She's not wrong. No, no, no. She's not wrong. She was more so saying, like, she joked about, but she's more so saying like it's a challenge that I think you should really try. She thinks I'm funny. I think I'm funny, but like to be funny and improv and be funny to strangers, like for stand up, that's a whole beast in itself. I'll take it is. It is. And I've tried my hand at comedy, like films and writing comedy. And I have all my friends telling me I'm good at it. And I will, if I need to pick me up, I will remind myself that. But I want to be able to make strangers like yourself laugh at like laugh at what I do or do that. And also I'm 6'1", I'm a big dude. Everyone looks at me as like this goofy guy. So for me, my challenge is I'm going to do a drama and I'm gonna turn it upside down, and then I want you guys to be like, "Holy shit, you can do drama too." Um, I love it. You keep circling back to it. Yes, thank you. So, yeah, no, we are, but you keep. This is the second time you've circled back. I'm like, awesome. All right, but yeah, no, keep going, keep going. I'm sorry. Yeah, but you see that maybe with some actors. Yeah, and you wonder why. I don't know what would be a good example. Maybe like Bryan Cranston in Breaking Bad. He was always that goofy dad or that goofy character, and then he ended up being casted as Walter White, and then now it's like holy shit. Or like a Hugh Jackman who does superhero movies, but the dude is really good at like fucking musicals. It's like you want to be able to show your range. But anyway, how long has this? Do you have a name for your acting school? I should have asked that first.
is authentic you. And it's all about finding your authenticity and bringing that to your work. A lot of what I focus on in class is confidence and the confidence to be vulnerable and letting that be enough and letting you be enough and your choices are enough and your choices are right. If they feel good to you, that is the right choice. There is no one way to do a scene. And if there was, it would be boring to watch people do auditions. And that's why I believe there's somebody who's right for the role, and then there's people who did an amazing job and did amazing work, but there was just something that wasn't right about it. And that's why it's not like you could do anything different at the point of casting. You didn't do anything wrong in your audition. You didn't do anything bad even. It just wasn't the right fit. And that's like annoying to hear, but it's just the truth that sometimes I think there was one project that I was up for. The other lead that they cast had curly hair, so they couldn't cast me. So that just automatically put me out of the running. Or I auditioned for something. I did an amazing audition for Z Nation for a series regular role. This was when I was still living in Portland. And I know I nailed it. Like, I did everything they asked me. And then I watched the episode with the monologue that I had to audition with. And the actress who booked it was just a more like a stronger physicality, like a more masculine presence. And I was like a softer presence. But she did exactly the same thing I did. Like, I even put my audition next to hers. And it was like, let me see if there's anything different. Cause I was curious. Cause like this was back when I was still dealing with a little bit of that insecurity and that pressure to that I had to make this big booking soon, by the time I'm 25. And they were the exact same performance, but she was like taller and stronger and a little bit bigger than me. And she had like a short haircut.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and it is that one, it always seems to be that one small thing, and I feel like when you kind of realize like, hey, this is, it could happen any moment. Don't put, so much pressure on it. Something's eventually going to break, So how long has Authentic You been around for?
So Authentic You has been around for about 2 years. But I officially got the keys to my studio actually just 1 month ago, not even, actually 3 weeks ago. So I'm officially operating in person in my studio as of March 20th.
Nice.
So I've been doing most of my coaching over Zoom until then, for 2 years. And I also taught at like a bunch of acting schools. I taught a lot of kids. I did a lot of teaching for a while, but I came to a point in my career where I was like, I want to offer something that nobody else offers. I want to demystify the business. I want to encourage people to have confidence in themselves and not overthink so much. And I want to do it at an affordable price. That's the other thing for me, is that I could charge more than I charge, but I'm not doing it for the money necessarily. I think there's like the average price of a class in LA, if for like a once a week class, is like $300 to $800 a month, depending on where you go. And there are even some just weekend workshops. I mean, granted, they're 2 full days, but there was a weekend workshop I saw that I got an email about. It was $800 for 2 days. And who can really afford to pay 2 rents? As actors, like, we don't have any control of our money in terms of acting income. So like, we're having to pay rent and pay for headshots and pay for casting profiles, all the things we pay for, and then have to pay for being in class. So I wanted to offer something that was affordable, that encouraged people to embrace their most authentic self and who they are and what makes them special, and to bring that to their work. And the on-camera aspect, that was my top 4 most important things. Creating a community where you also learn and that there's value, and you walk away feeling good about yourself. There's a lot of classes where you walk away feeling like you suck. And I'm going to push you. I'm going to tell you when, that wasn't it necessarily, but I'm not going to tell you that you're bad. I'm just going to give you a tool or try an exercise with you to help you find what feels good, and however long that takes.
Yeah, and you mentioned off air, like you, you have that Jersey mentality of just not being, of just pushing you and being, I hate the word abrasive, but like, yeah, you're blunt about it. And I think people need that. I think people miss that. Like I said, I visited a friend of mine out in California, and I was very blunt about something. He's like, damn, I miss that East Coast, like, bluntness. And you don't get out there,
I have a bone to pick with that a little bit, just because I think we talked about this off air. Like, there's a difference between blunt with the intention of just like, I don't care how it makes you feel. And then being blunt and honest about what you really think, but also caring about what that person might feel. So I'm going to say what I think, but if I can see that you're not receiving that in a way that's productive, I will rephrase, or I will find another way to explain what I mean, because I've had situations myself where a coach said something that, like, yeah, maybe it was the truth, but it hurt my feelings. And it was obvious that it hurt my feelings, and that
Mhm.
it discouraged me. And if an actor's feeling insecure and discouraged, like, how are they going to do their job? Their job is to be vulnerable. How are you going to be vulnerable with someone who just told you you suck and
Yeah.
didn't give any redeeming qualities about it? That didn't also say, like, you did a great job at this, but I'm missing this. Can you personalize it more? Or let's try this because you're not getting all the way there. I think you can do more. Like, there's a difference between saying, like, I think that you were in your head too much, and
Yeah, no, but it's the delivery in one versus the other, you know? Yeah. Last question before we wrap up the episode. For you, how helpful and harmful is the pressure we feel from ourselves or others? Like how helpful can it be sometimes to push through, and how harmful could it be?
buddy.
Yeah. So
Um,
for you specifically.
yeah, I think I think my personal pressure is a good thing to an extent. I think that if you become obsessive about hitting a goal by a certain time, that's not healthy. But the feeling of needing to achieve something means that you care about it and that you're passionate about it. And I think that if you don't feel any pressure at all to achieve something, then you may be doing yourself a disservice. I think it's important that, especially in this industry, but in anything that you do, that you're passionate about what you do. And when you're passionate about what you do, like, you do something every day
Yeah.
to achieve what you want. But on the other hand, I think pressure from others, and this goes for all types of things in life, and that's a big part, I think, of an actor's journey, is like, your life is just as important as your career, and your value is not based in your career. But pressure from others saying, like, when are you going to get a real job? Or what happens if you don't get this? That to me is not helpful. It's very harmful. Um, and I think we need to become more comfortable as actors and humans to tell people, that's not helpful for me. You're making me feel like you don't believe in me. Um, I'd appreciate if you don't do that. Because I find pressure from others and from society to be very harmful, because there is no one way for success. You are the only version of you that exists, and your career journey will look different than everybody else's. And when you let society or family make you feel like you're supposed to check some sort of box by a certain time, you are setting yourself up to feel discouraged and like you can't do it. And you can. You can do
Yeah.
anything that you want to do. I believe that one.
Awesome. That's a great way to end the episode. We appreciate you coming on today, and talking about, just you, like we're talking about your backstory and, your authentic you, studio or class. If you are in LA listening to this and you want to get into acting, please search for her. Are you still doing online classes or
I offer
strictly?
everything both online and in person.
So if you want to go online, you want to take some acting classes, and you want to meet a cool person, then Allesondra Helwig is the person to search for. Yeah. Thank you again for coming on. We appreciate it. And can't wait for our next episode.
Thanks for
Um,
having me.
no problem. No problem. And yeah, guys, until next time, this is Where's My Mind? And yeah, we hope you enjoy. Once again, this is Where Is My Mind, a podcast about mental health and the arts. I'm host and producer of the podcast, Christopher Orangeo. All episodes will be available on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Radio Public, and Amazon Music. Once again, this is Chris Orangeo, and thank you for supporting.